And today I would be talking about how to modernize your digital systems, right? Primarily, uh, this particular modernization I would be mostly talking about from an infra perspective, and the tagline I'm sort of is like, while we want to deliver omni-channel and secure and resilient digital experience with decoupled Drupal using Istio and Kubernetes. Yeah, so that would be primary. Most of my talk wouldn't be on the Drupal part, rather more of on the infra part, right? How we can leverage Kubernetes, Istio, and have a better developer experience, or maybe in fact build better or resilient applications. Yeah, so that would be most of the talk about. Just to talk a brief about myself, I lead DevOps in Cerigen. Yeah, as a Cerigen, we have been like one of the largest Drupal companies in Asia. And personally, I've been working with Drupal since 2012. I have worked with Drupal 7 a lot, Drupal 6 really minimal, and sometime back in the past, I did had a chance to at least work on a small Drupal 5 migration that was long back. Yeah. And apart from technology, I am ultra runner as well. I'll do a lot of ultra running, and the picture on the right hand side is while I was finishing an 80-kilometer run. So that's on the finish line. Yeah. So you can follow me, like my Twitter handle is like Ashish Thakur. You can find me on Drupal as 8.Thakur. And since just in case like there are other folks from running community, right, you can find me on Strava as well. So that is my, what to say, Strava handle. Now coming to the actual talk, right? So the presentation contents would be, I'll give a brief context summary or the problem, right? And then talk about different microservices concern, and then give a really holistic modern architecture, right? I believe today's keynote, which Preston gave, right? He might have talked, I couldn't join that, but I believe he might have talked a lot about decoupled Drupal or even API first Drupal. Yeah, and that has been the general trend in the Drupal world as well, right? While Drupal emerged from as a traditional CMS to more of a decoupled, and then lately, most of the companies are trying to use Drupal just as a content as a service, right? So in this out here, we'll sort of talk about a holistic modern architecture when sort of Drupal fits in an entire microservices ecosystem. A brief introduction about Drupal, which I believe most of us already know about, and a brief introduction about Kubernetes, a small introduction about Istio, and then we'll go a more deep dive into Istio, right? And we'll see a sample application using Istio and without Istio. And then after that, like, oh, the numbering is wrong. So much of the session would be actual live demo. I'm hoping everything works correct. So yeah, so let's go ahead. Right. So you see, like some things which most of the organizations, they are currently contending for. Yeah. So they're primarily contending for two divergent trend, right? Like there is one could be like omni-channel experience, or you might want to call as a channel explosion. But unlike past, right? Back in the past, in case we just had websites, right? And people would typically build their application catering to a single screen, right? That would be our application. Then mobile phones came, right? And then things like responsive websites and all of that stuff came in. Now, basically, you see the screens have sort of exploded, right? You have laptops, you have mobile screens, you have IoT devices, you have smart watches, you have like lot of, what do you say, lot many channels, right? Unlike past, like the things have sort of that entire number of channels have exploded a lot, right? And this is mostly from a end experience view, right? But from a technical perspective, another divergent trend is like a lot of companies or organizations are moving more towards a decoupled architecture, or you might want to call as a distributed systems or microservices. Yeah. And particularly in Drupal, right? Back in the past, in the traditional CMS, we would do everything in Drupal, right? Right away from your content modeling, your content authoring, content presentation, and add in a bunch of, what is it, content modules. Maybe throw in, let's take an example. We want to build a commerce site. We'll throw in a bunch of commerce related module, right? Like commerce and all of the stuff, and then build everything as a monolith, right? But lately, trend is not like that, right? Like more and more people are opting Drupal in more of an headless fashion. Yeah. And where CMS is no longer a big contagious software system. Instead, it is a part of a distributed system with a very limited purpose. Yeah. So that is the trend which has been seen in most of the Drupal companies. And but yeah, that particular trend brings in a lot of problem as well, right? Like, because as organization adopt microservices oriented architecture, right, it comes with a lot of problems, right? And in that context, Kubernetes is emerging as a de facto container orchestration and a container management solution. And particularly while the entire microservices architecture, right, maybe you might start with just 2 microservices. Like typically in Ceridian, we started while we would have a Drupal exposing content, exposing its APIs, then there would be some middleware, and then there would be uh, some front-end based technology, right, which would talk to the middleware and then get the data, right? And then in some of the projects, the number of microservices went quite large, right? So in case uh, in this thing, right, like some of the cross-cutting concerns get really hard to solve, right? Like back in the past, some of the things we might end up writing are some of the traffic management code within our application domain, right? Or in fact, like there are certain things related to security and all other stuff, right? We would end up writing in our application domain, or maybe something related to my rate limiting and throttling, right? Back in the past, people would end up writing in our application domain, right? But ideally speaking, that's not really the correct way to do it, right? Because these are more of an infrastructure problem, and our applications, or rather our microservices, should be doing the stuff which they are actually meant for, right? Basically, it should be worried about the application logic, rather sort of worrying about the security and all of the stuff, right? These should be ideally externalized, right? And in this session, we'll talk about all of these things, right? How we can externalize some sort of cross-cutting concerns like security, traffic management, right? Rate limiting, throttling using Istio, yeah? So particularly in this thing, right, like this concept called service mesh came, right? And they are a emergent pattern in that context. And Istio is an emerging service mesh foundation. Like some of the other service meshes could be like one of the things which I know of is like Linkerd, and then some of the cloud providers like AWS and all of the cloud provider, right? They would have their own proprietary service mesh as well. Like AWS has a thing called App Mesh. So yeah, so now talking again about the microservices concern, yeah. So just imagine, right? Like maybe while we move towards microservices, typically either there would be two patterns. Either we are starting a completely new greenfield project, or maybe we want to migrate a big monolith to a microservice. We start with just, let's say, 3 microservices, right? And maybe like at a later stage, we might want to sort of create another microservice, right? And maybe like 2 more, yeah? Things are still manageable, right? But as soon as the number of microservices starts increasing in that entire mesh, right, so does the complexity, right? Number of microservices more, right? Number of complexity, it is quite, that ratio is quite proportional, right? And if this entire complexity is not managed, if the move to microservices is not managed effectively, right, rather than having the benefits which microservices usually provide, right, it can put a lot of strain on the DevOps team and the engineering team. And I've honestly speaking personally gone through this, right, wherein we had we went through an entire DevOps transformation and a microservices transformation, though, and much of these things are, much of the things which I'm going to talk about is based on those learnings, right? We shared our part of pain, right? And I'll sort of share like maybe like how, in case people are going through a similar journey, they can solve their problem, right? And some of the concerns could be like service discovery, right? We want to sort of do a load balancing, right? Failure recovery, resilience, and observability, right? A recent example which I remember of, right, wherein like there's a microservice A, right, talking to microservice B, right, and that somehow due to some application bug due to some code bug in an application A, right, that service A was continuously sending requests to service B, right? So it is quite like a DDoS attack, but the boundary is internal, right? Yeah. So these kind of things will face a lot within the microservices architecture, right? So typically to solve this problem, right, mostly related to your service discovery and all other stuff, right, like effective use of some of the cloud native technologies like Kubernetes can help, right? But in case we go beyond that, right, Istio or service mesh, right, as a concept, right, can help us to solve a lot of these problems. Yeah. So typically, you see, like that's where I would talk about, right? So out here, in case we observe this entire holistic modern architecture, as we might sort of call, right? So In this scenario, rather than a traditional CMS wherein Drupal does everything, right? Or rather, I would like to sort of call it a monolith CMS, the way we used to do in Drupal 7, right? Wherein like CMS would have the entire functionality. Out here, the modern way, which I believe CMSs would evolve, and that is the trend which I've sort of seen, is like CMSs would be used for something which they are actually meant for, right? And that is something which they do really best, right? That is content management, yeah. Or in case of Drupal, right, we might use Drupal only for the content authoring and the content modeling, and leave rest of the stuff to some other external services, right? So in this entire architecture, let's take an example, right? We have Drupal, right, and then it exposes bunch of REST APIs, and those particular REST APIs are being consumed by bunch of microservices, yeah. And then while we want to expose this still out here in this domain, right, this particular communication is still internal. While we want to expose our APIs outside to the world, right, typically we would use an API gateway, right? And some of the examples of API gateway could be an AWS API gateway, or in case we want to go some more sophisticated, right, things, we could end up using something like APG, yeah. And most of the things which API gateway would take care of is like it might act as an ingress firewall, it might do your routing, it might do security, it might do your traffic management and rate limiting, analytics, and monetization, right? And basically all these APIs which are being consumed, which are being exposed by the API gateway, right, might be consumed by a different screen, right? Like laptop, like there could be some sort of native apps, right? IoT, like, and all of the stuff, yeah. But the challenge is, right, most of the API gateways work on the edge, yeah. So edge is the part wherein the traffic is exposed outside of the world, right? And so that's where the API gateways would sort of come in, right? And back in the past, right, the similar challenges we might face within the microservices communication as well, right? While we talk about microservices, there are two kinds of traffic we would be usually talking about, right? One traffic is called, right, north to south traffic. North to south traffic is typically referred to as an external traffic, which is coming inside our microservices. Yeah, so this is like something which will sort of come through the API gateway and maybe reach to one of our microservices, which is being exposed to the world. Yeah, and then there is an internal communication as well, right? More like an inter-service communication, right? And that is typically referred as like east to west communication. Much of our talk would be how to handle these things in more of an inter-service communication and how to leverage Istio for these things. Yeah. Now, I believe since this is Drupal camp, right, all of us are aware of what exactly Drupal is, right? So Drupal is a scalable, usually I would present this thing on some non-Drupal camps as well. So I had a brief introduction about Drupal, right? So Drupal is a scalable open platform for web content management and digital experience, right? And Drupal in its current state can be used in following pattern, right? Either it can be used as a traditional CMS, even in Drupal 8, we can still use it as a traditional CMS, right? Or it can be used as a decoupled CMS, right? Or as an headless CMS, right? So people end up using decoupled and headless in the same fashion, but like it has a bit of a difference, right? Typically in a decoupled Drupal, right, it might have an opinion on the presentation, it might have an opinion on a bit of a presentation and layout, but headless is entirely, in case we sort of talk about, right, that entire head is chopped off. So basically we just have Drupal exposing its REST APIs, yeah, and then being consumed by either a front end or maybe consumed by some other microservices, the way we are talking about in this architecture, yeah. So about Kubernetes, right, while this entire move to microservices happened, right, like I would usually take an example of Docker Compose, right? Like while we started learning Docker, right, typically within our Docker Compose file, we would have maybe a PHP service, yeah, and then maybe an Apache service, and then maybe a DB service, yeah. And then Docker Compose, in case we compare, right, it is a really, though it's not really an orchestration, right, like, but it still works, it joins all of these particular different services, right, and then they are able to talk to each other, right? Now imagine this at scale, right, wherein let's say I have in this architecture, yeah, we have Drupal, which is exposing its APIs, that is itself and service, right? And then there are like a bunch of microservices all together, right? Now, while we want to run such an architecture at scale, right, that's where basically Kubernetes would sort of come into picture, right? Like, and out here, right, and Docker is a de facto standard for containers, right? Unlike virtual machines, they have a really tiny footprint. Yeah, and then Kubernetes is a sort of a de facto standard for our container orchestration, right? And so typically while we create containers, right, and they would need certain management, plus like distributed systems is always a problem, right? And that's where basically Kubernetes actually helps us. Yeah. So Kubernetes would help us to sort of manage the entire life cycle of our containers, like it's what's it, container distribution, scheduling, your service discovery, and a lot of other things, right? And then talking about Istio, right? Now, though Kubernetes would help us to do that entire orchestration at scale, right, and help us with certain things like service discovery, right, and like providing us a really nice and resilient applications, right, wherein let's say in case one of my pods in definition of Kubernetes fails, right, we could, that guy can actually sort of start on its own, right? That's basically the entire, let's say, some of the concepts of Kubernetes would sort of come in, right? Or we can actually sort of talk more about Kubernetes, like you might define requests and limits within your Kubernetes, and then make your, and let's say while your service takes beyond CPU beyond a certain threshold, right, it might actually sort of restart rather than some DevOps engineer waking up 2 a.m. in the morning and restarting that entire service, right? So providing that entire resilient or a container orchestration at scale, right, Kubernetes does a really good job at it, right? Now comes the Istio part of it, right? Though Kubernetes solves those problems up to a certain extent, right, but not all of the things, right? Now, talking about Istio, Istio is a open source service mesh platform, right? And how it sort of works is it injects a sidecar. We'll talk about how exactly this sidecar works, right? And what that sidecar does, while two services are talking to each other, that sidecar intelligently captures all of the traffic which is happening between the two services which are talking within your cluster. Yeah, and some of the journal features which Istio might sort of provide, right? Like while just coming back to this, right? So at this place, right, your entire traffic might be HTTPS, right? But in lot of the conversation wherein I'm sort of talking to enterprise customers, right, there has been typically their IT team would come and they would typically ask us, right, is your inter-service communication secure, right? Whether two microservices talking to each other, though the trust is already there, right? Though they're already in some sort of a private network, but there is typically like big enterprises, particularly in the fintech domain, right? They have some sort of checklist, right? They would typically want your inter-service communication to be SSL as well, right? So, right, so basically Istio would provide that service-to-service authentication, binding, mutual TLS, right? It would provide telemetry, right? I'll come to each of these points again, right? It might provide us distributed tracing. It would sort of provide us a fault injection, routing, load balancing, circuit breaking, rate limiting, and authorization, right? So overall, in case we see, right, Istio can take care of most of the cross-cutting concerns which would emerge while an organization moves towards microservices-based architecture, right? So in case on my right-hand side, in case I've highlighted a couple of things in black, right? So I would be demoing these things, right? Like timeouts, right? Traffic splitting, right? And I will talk about traffic mirroring, and I will talk about distributed tracing. Yeah. Till now, is there something should I explain again, or like should I go ahead and, because much of the things which I'm talking about though might seem that entire concept which I've highlighted, right, would be really evident while we talk about the actual demo. Yeah. All right. So coming to Istio's architecture, right? So typically Istio's architecture would look, and in fact, the things have changed a lot, right? While my first experience with Istio was around 1.5 years back, and after that, after at least for 8 months, I hadn't touched Istio, and things have changed a lot, right? But still, like much of the foundation concept still remains, right? So Istio typically would have two planes, right? One of them is a thing called data plane, and another is a control plane, right? The data plane only consists of a small proxy, which sits besides your container in the same pod, right? So in case we understand Kubernetes, yeah, so I'll go into deep dive of all of these while in the demo, right? Assume this is a service A, yeah, and this is another service B. So these two guys are talking to each other. Without Istio in place, service A would talk to service B directly. While Istio is, while we end up using Istio, right, all of this traffic which is all of the communication between service A and service B, it does not happen directly. Rather, it goes via this particular proxy, and these proxies are nothing but Envoy proxy, right? Envoy proxy is a small proxy which was developed at Lyft, right? It is based out of, it is developed in C++, and Istio uses this Envoy proxy, yeah. And then this is our data plane, yeah. And then Istio consists of another plane called a control plane, right? So while these particular proxies are intercepting the request and response between service A and service B, right, they would capture certain matrices, right, and most of the attributes. And then our control plane can do a lot of things, right? Like some of the other, in the control plane, we have three major components, right? We have a pilot, citadel, and gallery, right? Pilot typically, let's take an example, right? Pilot would typically is more of a service discovery component of our Istio. And then it also helps us in a lot of traffic management, which we'll talk about, and in fact demo, right? Citadel, right? We talked about wherein like some enterprises might want this inter-service communication to be secure as well, right? They want this particular entire thing to be secure, right? Citadel is more of a you might, in a really simplistic term, you might want to call it as a sort of a security component, right? Wherein it allows us this entire communication to be mutual TLS, yeah. And then gallery, right? So typically we would be applying a lot of configurations to Istio, right? And then gallery is nothing but a sort of you can think about as a configuration management or an ingestion tool, right? So two traffics emerge here, right? One is your data plane traffic, which is the traffic which while two services are talking to each other. And then there is another traffic which we might want to call as the control plane traffic, right? The control plane traffic is this thing while these proxies talk to the control plane, yeah. So let's go with this example. I've taken in this example which Istio gives us, right? Now assume this is now this being a microservices architecture, yeah. So out here what we observe, typically you see we have 1, 2, and 3 services. 1, 2, 3, 4 services running out here, yeah? So there is a product page, right? And typically in a microservices architecture, we might want to call this thing as a sort of, this is more of a composite service, right? And then we have review services running, right? Just for the sake of simplicity, right? This review service has 3 versions. In a real life scenario, we wouldn't deploy 3 versions of the same service at the same time, but in this demo, right, it has been done just for the sake of simplicity, wherein I have like 3 services of reviews running, and then we have a rating service, and then we have a detail service, right? So this is the entire application which we would be talking about, right? Which consists of a bunch of microservices, right? So, right, in case we observe out here, this product page talks to reviews one, yeah, and there is a subtle difference. This reviews one does not talk to rating service, yeah, and whereas this reviews 2 talks to a rating service, and also this reviews 3 also talk to rating service, and this detail service also talks to this rating service, and this guy also talks to this rating service, right? And all of these entire requests are going via this Envoy proxies, which we just talked about, right? In a non-Istio environment, all of these requests would go directly, yeah. And then there is an ingress as well, right? So the Istio would provide an ingress Envoy as well. So all of our external traffic would come from here, yeah. So this would be a sample application which we would be using for our demo from here on, right? So I would be demoing these capabilities, right? Typically, though, I would be talking about request routing, right? And then I would be talking about traffic shifting, or we're talking about request timeout, traffic mirroring, distributed tracing, and then though this last part I will just talk about conceptually, but not really demo, right? The list of capability which Istio provides is like quite large, right? And it might end up like we might end up taking around 2 hours to demonstrate it, but like in this call, I'll just limit it to these few capabilities. Yeah. So I'll switch to my browser, right? I'll maybe escape this. I'll come here. So for an end user, the application looks in this fashion. Yeah. So basically, you see, this is our product page, right? And then all of the book details, they are coming from this microservice. Yeah. And all of our reviews are coming from our this microservices, yeah, and all of our ratings are coming from our this microservices, right? And in case I refresh, yeah, we would observe either I would see no stars, or I would see black stars, or I would see red stars. Yeah, all good till now. The reason it is why, because this guy is not connected to ratings. That's the reason, like some of, and that as of now, in case I do not apply a any traffic routing rules, right? Istio works in a what it does, it would distribute the traffic equally amongst three services, these three guys. Yeah, so that is the default one, default traffic rule which has been applied. That's the reason sometimes we do not see any stars, because this guy is not connected to this one. And then reviews would give us a black star, and then this v2 version of reviews would give us a black star, and then v3 version of our review service would give us a red star, right? Now so now you see same stuff. So we would be using this particular application for most of our demos. Now let's talk about this one. Yeah, so okay, so in this thing, what we'll do, right, firstly we'll route now, though in a real life scenario, right, users would not deploy three versions of a microservices at the same time, but in the, just for the sake of simplicity, we have deployed all three versions at the same time. Yeah, so out here in this particular request routing, we'll simulate a really small request, right? First, with what we'll do, we'll send all the traffic to v1. Yeah, and then just for a specific user, which happens to be JSON, we send the request to reviews v2. Yeah, so in this thing, right, one of the use cases which we might end up using this particular request routing would be canary releases, right? Wherein, let's say we have two versions of our services, right? And then typically most of the companies would do it, right? Like Facebook would do it, right? It could be like Facebook might want to sort of release a certain version of their application only to a subset of a user, right? Similarly, we are trying to simulate a same thing out here, wherein, let's say, rest of the users wouldn't see any star, whereas in case I log in as JSON, right, JSON would see all of the traffic for JSON would be redirect to v2, and JSON would see black stars, right, or red stars. It would be one of those, right? Yeah. So let's simulate this thing. Yeah, I'll show you, like, the guys who are familiar with Kubernetes, it might look quite familiar. So this one is our request routing. I'll show each of these files so that, like, since I believe most of us do have request. There's a bit of a latency in this cluster, so sometimes this rule getting applied to the cluster takes a bit of a time. Okay, this timeouts. Should not be happening. Yeah. Okay, so you see, like at the end of the day, right, folks who understand Kubernetes, right, it has done nothing but Istio creates a bunch of its own CRDs, right? Like, and virtual service is one of those CRDs. Yeah. So in case I go back to my browser again and refresh, yeah. Now, as an anonymous user, since I'm not logged in yet, yeah, I would never see that star. Yeah. Now, in the second request, right, in case I observe, though this is a really rudimentary example, right, what we are doing, right, we are in the header, we are looking for an exact match called end user JSON, right? And then what we are doing, sending JSON to reviews v2, right? And whereas the rest of the users, they are being sent to reviews v1. Yeah. So this is the rule which we are going to apply now. This thing went fast. That's good. All right. Now let's see. Yeah. This is anonymous. Yeah. Now what I'm going to do, right? I'll maybe open my another. Let me open this one. Yeah. In this browser, I'll log in as a JSON. So this is a really simple example, right? And it, in fact, like this has been up to certain extended hard coded as well, but the concept is clear, right? Like this is one example of a canary release, right? Now, in case we observe, right, JSON is at v2, yeah. So that's the reason JSON is able to see black stars, yeah. Whereas in case I go to my other browser, this is an anonymous user, right? They don't see any star. Why? Because this entire request has been routed saying that all the JSON, all the users go to v1, right? No, all the user except JSON, they go to v1 and JSON would go to v2. Yeah. So this is one of the use cases of request routing, right? And a real life use case would be, right, wherein we want to do a canary releases. Yeah. So typically back in the past, people might end up writing such kind of logic in their application code, right? But that's not the basically an application concern. This is more of an that should be typically externalized, right? And now in this thing, we'll talk about traffic shifting, right? Now, in this traffic shifting, what we are going to do, right? First, we'll route all the traffic to v1, right? And in the subsequent request, right, we would, let me make this a bit bigger. And in the subsequent configuration, we'll route traffic at a 50-50% between v1 and v3. Yeah. So the observation would be either at certain times we'll see red stars, and at certain times we wouldn't see any stars, right? And some of the use cases could be, yeah, this is an A/B testing, right? Let's say we want to roll a newer feature, but we are not really sure that how exactly my users would react to it, right? So rather than rolling it to all of the users, I randomly send it to a bunch of let's say to a subset of a user, right? And then some of the A/B analysis could be, oh, user looking at the red star, right? They have a more tendency of buying that book, right? Depending upon that, right, we might route all of the traffics to v3. Yeah. So let's simulate this traffic, this one. Before that, I need to clean up my previous configurations just to be safe enough. Okay, so this one was traffic. Traffic shifting. Yeah. That latency is no longer there, right? Now, while I've applied that rule, let's go back to our browser. Yeah. Every traffic goes to v1. By that, it means no stars at all. Yeah. Now, let's apply the second one. This one. Yeah, I'll show you this one, right? Now, in this rule, right, you see, this virtual service is one of a custom resource which Istio creates, right? So out here, what we are saying, right, we are sending 50% request to v1 and then another 50% to v3. Let's apply this rule and see how our application behaves. Configured. Got it. Now we see either sometimes we'll see red stars, yeah, and in certain requests we wouldn't see any stars, yeah. Now this is a typical use case of A/B testing, right, wherein we want to A/B test our a newer feature, right, and then Yeah, so that's where basically some of other capabilities of Istio would come in, right? Just to be really precise enough, right? Istio wouldn't do that A/B testing. Istio would help you to route your traffic in a certain fashion so that you can do that A/B testing. Yeah, but Istio as such like does not do A/B testing, right? You might want to use some other tool to do your A/B testing, right? So this is one part of it. Now let's assume right now, while that A/B testing, we realized, oh, the guys who are looking at the red stars, right, they have the more tendency of we capture the user behavior and look like, oh, users are reacting really well to red stars, right? In that context, as a product team might take a decision, let's show red stars to everybody, yeah, instead of showing no stars. So in that, let's apply the final rule. Right, let's refresh. Now, unlike previous one, wherein there was either no stars or red stars, we will always see red stars. Yeah, so this is another use case of traffic shifting. Okay, now I'll come to request timeouts. Before request timeouts, I'll maybe first go to this one because these things typically take a bit of time to simulate, right? I'll come to this part. Yeah. Now distributed, let me make my screen a bit bigger because this is quite an interesting concept. Now, this is a capability of a distributed tracing, right? Now, going back to our this example, right? A user would typically come from the ingress, right? And then maybe no, I'll go to our user would come from an ingress, land up on the product page, right? Yeah, and then product page you can sort of think about this is our UI, our front end, right? And then reach up to this place, and then these guys are talking to a bunch of microservices, right? Assume the we are seeing a high latency within our application, right? In that context, right, the user is not really aware, right? Like, oh, either is my review service slow, is my detail service slow, or is my rating service slow, right? That user is not really aware of, right? And then imagine the same scenario in such a complexity, right? Wherein, let's say, assume this particular microservice is exposed to the world via ingress, and then there is some application, maybe an Angular application, and then that Angular application is either like timing out or throwing some errors, right? Or is really slow, right? So anything can be slow, right? Either this guy is culprit, this guy is culprit, this guy is culprit, this guy could be culprit, right? Now, how I would typically, I take this example quite a lot with my teams as well, right? So back in the past, in the monolith world, right? In fact, we still use it, right? I would, let's say this entire book info application is behaving really odd, right? And then typically what we would do, right? We want to see, oh, like what is slow? We would typically go to our network tab and then observe the latency, right? Like, oh, how much time it is taking, what is our load time, right? But the, what is it? The boundary of this network tab, right, is only till ingress, right? It will tell you something is wrong, right? What is wrong inside? It wouldn't really tell you, right? It wouldn't tell you like whether this guy is slow, this guy is slow, or this guy is slow, right? That's where basically this entire distributed tracing would sort of come in. Yeah. So where is my distributed tracing? Okay. Just one second, I need to execute a command. Istio-ctl. Yeah. So let's find the traces. Okay. Now I'll take someone which has, because we had routed requests like from all over the place. I'll take a request which has most of the services available. Yeah. And in fact, make it a bit bigger as well so that the audience is able to see. And yeah, so basically we in a microservices architecture, when microservice A talks to B, B talks to C, right? We can trace till your end, right? Like we know product page talks to, coming back to product page talks to details. Yeah. So product page is talking to detail, right? And then we know product page talks to reviews as well. And then product page talks to ratings as well, right? So let me collapse this one, right? And then out here, we can visualize till the final depth, right? It would tell us, oh, the request between product and details is slow, or is the request between my reviews and rating is slow, or is the request and what is the not the request, like is the, or is the, what to say, this or this particular, right, from product to review page, whether that particular entire request is slow, right? So in fact, you see, like these are the time taken by each of these particular requests, right? It's not the end request, while we observed took around 860 millisecond, right? But out here using this particular tool, yeah, we are able to analyze, right, the request between each of our microservices, right? This guy to this guy, this particular service to this service, this service to this service. So that's where basically this entire concept of Istio would sort of help us, right? Like we can trace till our final microservices, right? Like imagine though this is in this place, this just 4 microservices, right? Imagine thousands of microservices, right? That's where basically Istio is going to come in, yeah. So this is distributed tracing. Now I'll talk about 2 more capabilities called, I'll talk about traffic mirroring first, yeah, because that is something which most of the folks out here would can easily conceptualize at, right? Now take an example, right? Now, though out here, what we have done, we have deployed all 3 services, right? In fact, yeah, of reviews together at one time, right? But typically we wouldn't do that, right? We will create a V1 and then that would run for a couple of months or weeks, right? Then we would like develop some new features, right? Release a V2 and then release a V3, right? And that it would have its own development cycle. Now imagine in V3, we have created some new functionality, right? Though that particular V3 version of review service was tested, QA'd, UAT'd on non-production environments around maybe like around thousands of times, right? But production is production, right? Like anything can go wrong, right? And there might be a case, this is a really, there might be some specific use case which we are not able to, simulate on our UAT environment, right? And then some of the typical use case which we would be doing is, right, oh, I want to see how my reviews V3 service would work in a production grade environment, yeah? So one of the use cases is either I can maybe route all of my traffics from, let's say, from V2 to V3, right? Let's assume we went through an entire cycle, right? First we had V1, right? And then we had developed V2, and then we had developed V3. Now V3 is a really breaking change, right? Though tested, QA'd, UAT'd a couple of times, but still there is a bit of a small lack of confidence in the team, right? So that's where basically this entire concept of traffic mirroring, or rather shadowing, would come in, right? Wherein we can release V3 to production, but the end user wouldn't actually know that V3 has been released. And though the request would still go to V2, but V2 is going to mirror certain traffic to V3. Yeah. So let's see that. And then typically what we can do, right, like the end user would never see V3 in working, but what we can do, right, we can view at the logs of V3 service, because a mirrored traffic is being sent over there, right? And then viewing at the log, right, we can analyze our HTTP code, like, or 200s, right? All good. In case we are seeing some sort of, let's say, 5XX, right? Or let's say some other 4XX HTTP codes, right? Like, in that context, we might feel, this particular V3 service might have something which is not working as expected in the production, right? By that, we can release to production, rather release a newer version of a service to production with a really minimal risk, right? Let's simulate this one. Yeah. Okay, first let me delete the previous configuration. I'll kill this. Let me delete first. This would be the last one, and the timeout one, maybe I'll just ask the audience, should we look at the timeout one as well, or we can leave some time for Q&A as well. Okay, I have around 16 minutes left. Yeah. Scripts. Now this is my traffic mirroring. Okay. So this particular all to V1 right now. Now I'll apply to V2. Yeah. Assume like first thing we had rolled out V1, right? So no stars at all. Yeah. Now we want to release V2. Now basically what I'm doing, right? I'm sending all the requests to V2 version, right? So virtual service host reviews subset V2. Yeah. Okay. Now we would see black stars. Yeah. Now in this pane, in two panes on my right hand side, yeah, what I'm going to do, kubectl get PO. In the top pane, I'm going to stream the logs of my V2, and in the bottom pane, I'm going to stream the logs of our V3, right? kubectl logs V3. And there's one thing which I skipped in the beginning. I'll come back again to this thing here, right? V3. In fact, let me come here right now itself, right? So in case we observe, right, there are, I'll show you some other namespaces as well. kubectl get PO minus N. So, right, just observe the difference here, right? Out here, you see like folks understanding Kubernetes would already know this, yeah? So out here, what we see one by one, right? So this is a pod in concept of a Kubernetes, right? It says it is expecting one container to run out here, yeah? And one of them is running, yeah? So one by one, right? Rather, in case you observe this guy, right? It always says 2 by 2, right? So that's the other container which we have been talking about, right? First container, it's the service itself, yeah. Then the other container is the sidecar which we have been talking about, right? So all of the traffic which happens between different services, right? They go via sidecar, yeah. So now let's look into the logs of, and rather than looking at the product, the actual container itself, right? We have to look into the logs of our sidecar. Yeah, minus C, right, argument, and then there is a sidecar running called Istio proxy. Proxy, let's say I'll tail it. Tail it for 5. All right, this is some older logs coming. kubectl logs. This is V2 minus C Istio proxy minus F minus minus tail is equal to 5. Yeah. Now let's observe. In case we remember our last configuration, right? We sent all the traffic to V2. Yeah? Now, in case I send some request here, right? I'll send a couple of requests because sometimes that there's a bit of a lag in the log streaming. In case I go here and observe this pane at the top, right? Let me send some more requests. Sometimes that request might not come there and then. This is a live demo, guys. Sometimes anything can go. Yeah, you see, so a request came in, right? So since it is like there's a bit of a delay, but within our V2, we are able to see certain requests, right? So there is a bit amount of a delay, but we are able to see, yeah, a request came here, right? Now, what we are going to do, this particular spec is quite interesting, right? We are sending requests to V2 and then we are mirroring 50% of our requests to V3 as well, right? I'll apply this one. Yeah. So the user would never see V3 because the traffic isn't sent actually to V3, right? Traffic is still to V2, but there is a mirrored traffic to V3. Yeah, user would still see black star. No end user experience would be changed. But in case we observe in our right bottom pane, I'll send a bunch of requests. There's a bit of a delay, guys. Just give me 1 second. I'll try to simulate a few more requests. Yeah, in case we observe, though it was a really brief one, but requests are coming to V3 as well, right? And then we would observe the HTTP code. Most of my codes are still 200, right? In that context, though this V3 version hasn't been released to production yet, right? But mirrored traffic is going to V3, and then looking at the logs, right? Like since most of the what do you say, HTTP codes are 200, right? We can take a fair decision. Oh, like this particular V3 is, though that functionality has been UAT'd and tested, but just to gain more confidence in ourselves, right? We are sending a mirror traffic, and it is not throwing any weird HTTP code and throwing expected HTTP code like 200 and any 2XX. Yeah, so that's the reason we can sort of confidently say like, oh, V3 is working as expected. Now coming to the last part, I'll quickly finish this thing. Request timeouts. Now talking about this now, right? Let's talk about we can build more resilient applications using Istio, right? And then let's say we can, rather than adding timeouts and all other stuff within our application, right? You can add timeouts within your using Istio itself, right? So we do not have to touch any application code, right? Such timeouts can be added within our application code. So out here, we're going to simulate a really a behavior which might occur in a production, right? So what we are going to do, right? First, route all the traffic to V2, yeah, and then we'll induce an artificial delay of some seconds in the rating service, and then add a timeout of 5 seconds to V2, right? And in case this V2 is talking to rating, yeah, in case this guy does not get its response from rating in that stipulated time, right? This guy is going to timeout, yeah. Back in the past, people would end up writing that code in their application logic, right? But these are the things which Istio helps us to externalize, right? Let's see this thing in our real life. Request timeout, okay, right, same things. Yeah, I'll close this guy, close this guy. Yeah, so first all request to V1, right, just to be safe enough. Now second request goes to V2, right? V2 was black stars. Now all the requests would start going to V2 now. Yeah, let's observe that behavior in browser. All black stars. Yeah, now I'll show you this first delay, right? Out here, what we have done, right, in rating service, we've added a delay of 2 seconds, right? And this is an intentional delay, right? And typically you wouldn't really add a delay, right? A real life scenario is right, something really, let's say your rating service is, there is a memory leak because of which it is taking a lot of time to give response, right? And that is something which we could not simulate. That is something which can occur in your production environment, right? But to simulate that behavior, right, we have induced this artificial delay, right? Now what are we going to do, right? We're going to apply that rule now. Now you would see the page would load a bit slower than before, yeah, but still. Now coming back to this deck again, right? Now we remember, right, this guy talks to rating service, right? V2 talks to rating service. Now in our third rule, what we're going to apply, we're going to apply a timeout of half a second to our review service, rather a V2 version of our review service. Yeah, V2. Okay, now this is the interesting part. Okay, now, right, in case such a thing was, this timeout wasn't there, right? Typically what could have, like a cascading effect might happen on your application, right? And application would go down, right? Out here your entire application wouldn't go down, right? Only it would say your, since this traffic is not working, right? So that's the reason, like only this part of thing is not working, right? Whereas like I'm still able to see the details of our product, right? So another, though this is a timeout, right? One of the really good use cases is circuit breaking, right? And it is hard to simulate, right? But all of us understand circuit breaking, right? It comes from the concept of electrical engineering, right? Like let's say, while in case a high voltage goes through our entire through our wire, right? A circuit would break, yeah, and that would end up not destroying all of our electrical appliances, yeah. So rather than having that entire cascading failure, right, that circuit breaks saves our like electrical appliances. So the same concept can be done using Istio as well, right? Wherein let's say our rating service is freaking out due to like high memory consumption, rather than, and this guy talks to this guy, right? This rather than that, right? This is a more technical. Let's say this guy is maybe like freaking out due to like high memory consumption, right? Rather than bringing our entire cascading failure, right? This, because of that, this might go down, right? This might go down, right? And that entire application might go down, right? You can apply circuit breaker, right? This guy might go down, right? It is going to break this circuit, yeah. So that like, so these can be done as well, right? So yeah, so these are the distributed tracing we've already talked about, right? These are the capabilities which Istio provides, right? And then the final thing which I was, it hasn't been demoed, right? But it is the security part of it, right? To which I had already talked about in the introduction part, wherein let's say we want this particular traffic to be TLS as well, right? So that's where basically Citadel would come in, right? Citadel would issue certificates to both of these particular sidecars, and then both of these sidecars can start talking to each other via a mutual TLS. Yeah. So I think so. Yeah, that's all about it. So I'll maybe I'll maybe reach out to the audience. Like, is there some questions, or is there something you would like me to repeat, or?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ashish. Are there any questions from the other folks? I do have a question if none of you have any question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Any other questions, guys? Okay. Okay. So here we have a question from Mal. What is the worst scenario, or worst case scenario to use these tools, or any worst case scenario
This
things that you
isn't
could
a
share?
this isn't a, I wouldn't say a worst case scenario, right? Just take an example. I would say it's a more of a rational choice, right? In case you have just two services, right? Let's say you have a front end, right? Maybe that is built as a React app, and then a middleware and a Drupal service talking to that middleware. I wouldn't say don't go into the complexity of Istio, because in that context, like it's, like you just have 3 microservices in place, right? Istio would complicate stuff for you. In case your mesh is expanding, right? In case you have like high number of microservices in place, right? That's where basically Istio would add more values. In case you have just 2 microservices or 3 microservices, I wouldn't really recommend, right? Like ideally, in case you have 10 plus or at least 5 plus, it would add a lot of value.
Okay. Got it. Yeah, I have a similar question. Actually, that is almost similar to my question. I have my similar question from my end, Ashish. So, for defining an Istio service mesh, are there any available online samples or something that we could clone if you want to play around or try it? Or
Yes,
any?
yes.
Yep.
Yes. So in fact, this example which I gave, right? My initial idea was I would build a couple of microservices using Drupal as a CAS, and then maybe use a middleware, right? And then do it in an actual demo, right? But yeah, but in case you go to Istio's site, right, this entire book application which I've been using, right, you can do it. So it's quite easy to set up. Go here and you go to this book application. Yeah, so this, you can set up this entire thing, which and then play around with it. Things have changed a lot, right? Around 8 months back, right? As an architecture, like Istio has evolved a lot, but the concept remained more or less the same.
Yeah, got it. And as a follow-up to that, I see you're working on AWS. Is it possible for us to run Istio on any other cloud providers aside? And maybe I'm asking this for folks who want to try it on not AWS, GCP, or Azure. Maybe the other players that are smaller, I guess, like DigitalOcean, Linode,
Yes.
and all the other things.
So Istio works on a Kubernetes, yeah. So irrespective of the fact, like that particular Kubernetes cluster is either running on your AWS, DigitalOcean, GKE, or in fact your Minikube as well, right? Back in the past, I would just for my learning purpose, I would typically do a Minikube, but wouldn't risk a demo on a Minikube. But you can do it on,
Yeah.
yeah, you could do it on Minikube. And plus, guys who are still working with VM, right? So Istio works with Nomad and Consul as well, right? So basically Nomad and Consuls are tools with, from HashiCorp, right? Istio works with that as well.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Any other questions? I see. Let's get this last question from Steph. What are the best cases or types of application to use microservices with?
What are the best? Steph, would you mind explaining best case? What are the best cases or type of application? So, in case, Steph, let me know in case I understood the question correctly, right? You see, one of the things which, take an example, right? While we have a monolith, right, and we would want that particular monolith might have different domains, or rather, let's say, take an example of our e-commerce itself, right? E-commerce itself is a domain, right? And then within that e-commerce, different subdomains might emerge, right? Let's say there is catalog management, there is a recommendation system, right? So one of the best thing while we are going to a microservices architecture, right? Try to break your entire product domain into different subdomains, right? As a business, small business units, right? And then build microservices on that, right? So one of the best thing is maybe in case that would be really great idea, follow the concepts of domain driven design, right? Wherein you have a domain and you might want to find like different bounded context, right? Bounded context, I'll use a similar word, small, maybe like a simple word is a subdomain, right? Like e-commerce might have a, let's say recommendation subdomain, right? Sort of a, let's say, and then a catalog subdomain and all other stuff, right? Treat each of these particular different subunits as microservices and then build it, right? And then choose a technology or a programming language depending upon few factor, right? Let's say, yeah, either choose Node.js, right, and choose Go, depending that can have a lot of factors in place, right? Depends upon which particular language is best meant for that particular domain. Plus, depends upon the productivity of the developer as well, right? Taking a simple example, though as of now, technically it might make sense for me to use Go, but apparently I'm not really proficient with Go, right? But let's say I'm proficient with, let's say, PHP, right? I would still take a rational choice and still go ahead with PHP, right? Because that's the, what to say, good parts of microservices would sort of come in, right? Let's say there isn't a, where different teams, right, can work independently depending upon and choose their tool of choice, right, depending upon that particular domain or their understanding as well. Yeah, Steph, did I answer correctly?
Okay, nice. Okay. We have one last question here. Do you want to take this, Ashish?
Yes.
So what are you suggesting, or are you suggesting to structurally or set up your organization first?
Yes. First, we would think about the way I sort of said, right? Back in the, I did it myself wrong, right? First, we would take that entire domain, right? Let's take an example, e-commerce as a domain. Then first the business comes in, right? Then depending upon that particular business, right, we would like to solve it technically. Back in the monolithic world, right, we would solve it. Let's take an example of Drupal itself, right? We would add a custom module, right? Maybe a commerce module or something similar, right? But that is the technical implementation, right? So business problem comes in first, right? Then depending upon how we solve it, right, it's more of a technical problem, right? So yeah, so first that entire business would come in, then we would structure it technically, like, oh, this particular thing, right? This looks like another discrete microservice, right? And oh, this thing looks like another microservice, right? Something which we should not do is, I did it myself personally, is, right, creating microservices based on entities, right? Oh, I have a user. Oh, this can there be a user microservices? Oh, that's the wrong thing to do, right? I have articles. Can I create an article microservices? That's an entirely wrong thing to do, right? Take a domain, divide your domain into different subdomains, right? Each of your subdomains can be microservices, right? And then do solve it, right? And then more of like take a choice, right? Like depending upon tool of choice, you can start developing your microservice.
Okay, I guess that will be our last question. Thank you very much, Ashish. It has been very interesting. It is my first time seeing STO, and I can imagine how this is really useful for, as you've said, domains or applications where you'd want to break them down because they're so big that managing them is already very tedious, and I think microservice will really help us a lot here.
Yes, and one of the things which I personally felt, though it is a really subset of Istio, right? This part, right? I'll speak from a practical experience wherein we broke a monolith into 5 to 8 microservices, right? And then while we didn't have this entire capability, right, the application team would end up, what do you say, arguing with the DevOps team, right? Like, oh, and in fact, like a couple of application teams would sort of argue with themselves as well, right? They would say, your application is down. And they would say, no, not really. It's your down, right? Because from this particular experience, I can't really figure out like which particular microservice is behaving odd, right? But in case I go to this particular thing, right, I can drill down to the last microservice. Oh, let's say rating service, this is your fault, right? Now you need to fix it. Yeah.
Yep, got it. Makes sense. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ashish. Okay, so we can take a break. At the moment, I'm not sure if our next speaker is already in the room, Akacha. And for those who are waiting, you're very much welcome to move um, to the other room if I haven't confirmed yet the next speaker. Thank you very much, Ashish. Um, but for our speaker, I still don't have a person here. So not to waste your time waiting, um, I can, I think the other, at room B, we are going to have, or the next session is almost up. So feel free to switch rooms so you could somehow listen to a different topic while we are waiting, or if we don't have Akansha here yet for our session here. So I recommend maybe give more 5 minutes more to wait. After that, you're very much free to go to the other room and maybe listen to the other topic that we have. If for a case of because we are anticipating that maybe someone have some problems with the internet, or just there's an emergency, someone can't really attend, we really understand. Our default is we are going to convert any blank sessions to be another BOF sessions. We have a number of backup topics that are very short. How I usually call them lightning talks, and we'll probably run that around half the hour of the slot. So we will feel free to move, and if you are interested to join a BOF session in case our next speaker won't be able to join, we will resume with that BOF sessions around 3:15, so 20 minutes from now. Okay, so thanks everyone for your time. I'm gonna stop the recording now, and